Good afternoon and happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Mark's out of HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for the 16th day of June 2013. Hey, look at this. Have something to talk about. Kind of popped up out of nowhere. Well, they never pop up out of nowhere. There's always a reason behind why something develops. And in this case, there's a tropical wave that was traversing through the Caribbean Sea. I pointed that out on yesterday's map, and it looks like it has found somewhat favorable circumstances to develop in, and it's really flaring up. You can clearly see on the visible satellite imagery here what I'm talking about, this area of showers and thunderstorms. A little bit of a curved structure to it if you use your imagination just a little there. Otherwise, it's just more of a tropical disturbance than anything else. The Hurricane Center giving it a 30% chance of development. It will bring, as it is now, and it'll continue to do so, heavy rains to portions of Central America, maybe up here to the Cayman Islands, and maybe a little bit of rain shower activity to Jamaica. But overall, the motion of this system is towards the west-northwest, towards the Yucatan and Central America, where it'll probably get buried over land and not have much of a chance to develop. We'll see what happens. We'll take a look at the forecast in just a moment. So here's the area. This is, again, just a graphical representation of what we're talking about. It's centered right off the coast of Honduras here, and it'll be moving right along the Gulf of Honduras towards Belize and the southern part of the Yucatan Peninsula, maybe emerging into the southern Bay of Campeche. Remember that a tropical wave in the atmosphere has a longitudinal length to it. It's not just flat, and so it's a wave in the atmosphere, and so part of it can go over land, and then the other part can go into the ocean and still develop. Just like you see a wave coming in from the sea, the under part of it will drag and spread out across the beach while the top of it keeps going and comes up onto the shoreline and gets you wet or ruins your sandcastle or whatever. Well, the same can be said for the most part with these tropical waves as they come along. The southern extent of it could get buried over Central America, while the northern extent of that energy could come into the Bay of Campeche and try to develop. Where it is situated now, water temperatures and heat content very high, as you would expect. The Western Caribbean very rich in oceanic heat content, lots of energy there. Looking at the upper level winds, they're not ideal. Some pretty strong southwest winds as a somewhat developing anticyclone aloft. You can see how they fan out. The winds do that diffluent flow. Let's take a look at it from a different perspective here from the GFS. This is the 12Z run of the GFS at the upper level outflow level, 200 millibars. And again, you can see how the wind is trying to fan out and do that clockwise sort of anticyclone aloft appearance, but it's not the most ideal, and so that's why it's not developing rapidly. It's not under ideal conditions, and there's some other reasons too behind it, I'm sure. But if these winds were to relax just a little bit, then it might develop some. Here's the Bay of Campeche that I was talking about, this area right in here, and this is where it might have a chance to develop. The southern extent of that wave energy probably going to go across Central America, the northern extent into the Bay of Campeche, where it might try to develop into a tropical depression or something early next week. Looking down the road at the forecast from the GFS, this is off the 12Z run today. This is valid at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and you can see the energy from the system right here impacting Central America, but you also see how the trade winds here, the wind flow, that's what these wind barbs show, they're pretty much straight across. Not much rotation, not much turning or curvature associated with this, so we don't see a lot of energy trying to wrap in. It's not very well defined. This is not your most prominent of tropical waves. In 48 hours, this is what I was talking about, the southern part of that energy may try to just go right on across Central America and into the eastern Pacific, whereas the northern part of that energy could make it into the Bay of Campeche here. The bottom line is it's going to be a wet couple of days and pretty heavy rainfall at that in parts of Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and maybe even into El Salvador over here. So that's going to be the bigger story rather than this being a big wind machine as a tropical cyclone. Remember those heavy downpours over mountainous terrain and areas that are not really equipped for 10 inches of rain over a short amount of time. That can produce flooding and major issues. Now, by Wednesday, 72 hours out, maybe the northern extent of that wave energy is able to close off into a low pressure area in the Bay of Campeche. Weird things happen down in this area. You see some small systems ramp up really quickly, and then they die just as fast over land. They're usually very small in their aerial coverage, but they can produce hurricane force winds sometimes over a very small area. I think that it was Hurricane Marco a few years ago that developed down in this area. It was tiny, very, very small. Hurricane force winds extended out like 10, 15 miles at the most. It was just a small system, and that's what the Bay of Campeche can do. It's sort of this weird shape of the coastline down there, how it kind of fosters that development. And so you don't have to have these big, lumbering hurricanes coming in and developing. All it takes is the right situation and the upper air features to be present, and you can get something to develop in short order. So you folks, all the way from central Mexico around the Bay of Campeche, just keep an eye on that in case it does try to ramp up quickly. Remember, the main impact with this is going to be rain and not wind. Hopefully it won't be wind. That was not a Freudian slip. I don't know anything in some crystal ball. But if you look at the GFS, that does give us a little bit of that crystal ball edge. And this is valid in 96 hours. This is Thursday morning, showing a 1010 millibar low. Really don't look at this for intensity, more of the shape of it, the organization, etc. And I'm just not seeing the signs of a potent system. But I do remind myself and you that, as I mentioned, in the Bay of Campeche, some weird things can happen, and you can ramp these systems up very, very quickly sometimes. So we'll just have to wait and see. Finally, by day 5, still a lot of moisture hanging around down there. So we'll watch this. This will be the topic of conversation over the next several days. Other than the big rain threat from it, as is the case with any tropical system, hopefully this will not amount to much more than that. And the rest of the tropics are nice and quiet. Nothing going on in the Gulf of Mexico or the open tropical Atlantic. The Eastern Pacific is also pretty quiet. All right, I'll be back again tomorrow. We'll talk about it some more. When this does get an invest number, I believe it'll be 94L, either 93 or 94L. Remember, the Hurricane Center will assign a number, 90 through 99, and then the letter L for Atlantic when you have an area that's worthy of more investigation. And we're either up to 93L or 94L. I can't remember which one. It doesn't matter too much. We'll address it tomorrow when the time comes. Again, I'm Mark Studd with HurricaneTrack.com as my site. Check it out sometime if you haven't. Always a privilege to do these videos for you on Hurricane Pro and HD. And with that being said, I'll talk to you again tomorrow.